your love 'cause it's burning hot. It's what you do to me, babe, I can guarantee. Honey, I got what you need. Under the night sky, I want your eyes all on me. Don't tell me lies now, I always get mine. Don't play with me. Do you want it? Can you feel me? Can you handle it? Right? Do you want it? Don't put your love on hold. I can't take it anymore. Put your love on me now. Trust me and you will see. Honey, I got what you want. Honey, I got what you need. Honey, I got what you want. Honey, I got what you need. Give me your love, no holding back, no. We could take it to the stars where you wanna go. The things that we can do, don't need to prove you know. Honey, I got what you want. Yeah, under the night sky, I want your eyes all on me. Don't tell me no lies, I always get mine. Don't play with me. So do you want it? Do you want it? Can you feel me? Can you feel me now? Can you handle it? Alright. So do you want it? Don't put your love on hold. I can't take it anymore. Put your love on me now. Trust me and you will see. Honey, I got what you want. Honey, I got what you need. Honey, I got what you want. Honey, I got what you need. So don't put your love on hold. Can you feel me? I can't take it anymore. Don't put your love on me. Trust me and you will see. Honey, I got what you want. Honey, I got what you need.
The hardest part because it's cultural.
What is up,
You know what I
entrepreneurs?
mean?
What is up, creators? Welcome to This Week in Live. We be rocking it. We be rolling it. You know how we do.
This
I'm
week in
super
living
pumped.
room.
This Week in the Living Room. Welcome to This Week in the Living Room. I am one of your hostess with the mostess, Diana Gladney. Met with my partner in crime, Dr. the Rizat. What's up, brother? How you doing this week?
Pain. But I'm gonna do
Pain.
it though. You know me, like I'm not really big on excuses and stuff like that. And then, so even though it hurts like a summer gun, I'm happy to be here because it's somewhat of a distraction as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Man, I completely understand. I completely understand. You got to do what you got to do. We got Dr. Elo in his house saying, first, indeed, you are my good sir, and happy Veterans Day as well. Yeah, Doc, happy Veterans Day to all of you that have served the American country. To all of you that serve whatever country that you're in, we'll honor you as well. But, you
That's
know,
right.
I mean, service like that is, you put your life on the line. I don't care what you're doing. So people say, oh, I just worked at it. No, because you signed up and you didn't know what the heck you was going to be doing necessarily, right?
True that.
And you signed up to say,
a lot
I'm
of times
for
what
it.
happens too, like, you know, when they see, a lot of people don't talk about this, but when somebody decide they coming after you, they normally go after infrastructure first. And a lot of people, it seems that it's the most dangerous, like on the lines and stuff. Probably infrastructure is where it's at. Like they'll take out cooks, they'll take out the conversation, and they also try to take out the communications thing, right? And then so you figure Camo is different because you're just sitting on handling radios. Nah, man, you're prime target. And as medics, we're a prime target. Take out the hospital, it hurt a bunch of people. We square.
Yep. Yep. And that's the
It's the
thing.
rules of engagement.
That's the thing as well. It's like when they take people, they don't care. They don't say, well, you know, man, hey, man,
Yeah.
I'm just auxiliary. I do such and such. Like, it doesn't matter. So for those of you that served our great country, we appreciate you. We honor you. We support you. We love you. Thank you so much for your service. We appreciate you. One day is not enough. We thank you every day, truly. But today is in remembrance of that. So we specifically put that date on the calendar, but we thank you every day. So thank you so much. So
Thank you.
a few
I
more
appreciate
family
it.
in the house. Girls Long, good to see you. Good to see you. Welcome back.
PJ. What's up, PJ?
Say, I only just say this dislike button thing. What's the deal? Oh, we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it. Aloha, Doc, Miss D, stressed out, stress free. Good
What's
to
up,
see
Vinny?
you. Good to see you. Glad that you're here. So, I mean, let's dive into some of this week in live as well as some other stuff that's what's going on. So we was actually talking about this a little bit before we hopped on the show today. And that is the fact that YouTube is getting rid of the dislike that you're seeing. The button itself, the actual image of the button is still going to be there. But what they've decided to do is they're going to make them private. So only the creator is going to see that, like you see that on the back end of things, but you're not actually, when you click on a YouTube video, you're not going to see the numbers for that. And they're saying and citing that they did an experiment early in March, and that experiment taught them a lot of things about the community, how stuff works. And we know that bots are a thing. We know that usually a raid in the gaming community, at least what from my experience, was always a good thing. You're leaving one stream to go hop on somebody else's to support them, no matter how many followers that they were or something like that. We always would do it as a surprise, but that's turned in recent times because people will do that for hateful things. I've had it happen in the live stream. You're just like, okay, but everybody didn't take that approach. So Doc, what do you think about this for this dislikes situation?
You know, it's funny because sorry, I'm looking at my thing and it's peaking. It's funny because I think that in the past it was a good thing. It helped you sort of figure out whether the video is going to be any good or not. I think, unfortunately, over the last 4 years, especially, probably about 6 to 8 years total, the dislike button has just become instant hate. Like, I have posted videos that are still processing now. So there's no way you watched a 15-minute video yet. And like, it's already dislike button. Like, I literally just published it. And the dislike bots, I would get like 3 instantly. And it never really bothered me because I wasn't making it for, you know, my ego per se. But it also does kind of like irritate. It's like, how you going to press the dislike button? I know you ain't even watching yet. But that back then too, I had the 30-second intro, so maybe they was telling me, trying
something. To tell you, I was trying to tell you.
But
something.
even now, even last year doing Vlogmas, you know, Team No Intro, bro, I would get dislikes as soon as the video is published, and that's when it just lets you know it bots. So I just feel like it wasn't real folks coming from a real position to be like, hey man, like the video would have been so much better if you did that. When I see that in the comments, I absorb that and try to learn from that, right? If it's just the button doesn't explain something. So I guess I always feel like if you got a problem with somebody, you know me, I'm finna tell you, right? The idea of just, I don't like you and not say nothing, that's not helpful. Like, it's not constructive criticism. So I guess just pressing dislike with no context is not constructive criticism. So that's the easiest way to explain it.
I think though, my expectation of a viewer is not to necessarily criticize that. I feel like the thing I always like teach on is like learning to listen to the loud majority versus not. Yeah, it's like the loud majority or sometimes the silent majority versus the loud minorities, meaning you'll have somebody that really truly doesn't belong on your channel. They don't fit the niche. They aren't the target market, none of that stuff. Like, they just don't fit. And they'll come across your video anyway because they think that they do. That person now gets frustrated because they're consuming content with a false expectation that they're going to get something that they don't. So it's like, even I will lead and have led probably like the last 2 years plus of like, if you are such and such in the video, this video is not for you. you need to leave now. Like, we're not even 10 seconds into this thing. It's like, if you think that you're about to get, we're not doing that. So even when, like, I compared the, A6400 to the ZVE10, I'm like, if you want photo stuff, this video is not for you. We're only covering video stuff. There's never going to be a photo side of it. I literally ignore one whole side of a camera. So if that's what you come in here for, leave now. Like, you don't belong. So
it's really good you say that, because a lot of people don't do that. And I've just recently seen creators starting to do that, because it's a good way to protect your line, especially in something like you said, a camera, hybrid shooter, right? So even for me, like if I was going to cover my car, look, I'm not going to talk about the gasoline side of my car, because the gasoline side of my car is the gasoline side of my car, right? This is an EV. It's a hybrid EV, but we're going to talk about the EV side, because that's what we're working on, right? All gas cars are basically the same. So yeah, you're right. And if you tell people like, look, if you're concerned about gas mileage, hey, check a different video. Matter of fact, I might send you somewhere, but I'm here to talk about electric range, how fast does it charge, what the service is like, so forth, so on, et cetera. So you're right. If you let people, the walk away people know, walk away. Just mind your business.
Yeah. I mean, that's
as they say, may the Lord bless you and keep you
May
always.
the Lord bless you and keep you always, because you ain't in the right spot. And that's the thing, though. It's like, so, and I get that coming from an educator's standpoint, from, what I do in my business, but average creators probably ain't gonna do that. And when you first getting started, you definitely don't know of the what to do, and you measure the likes and the dislikes versus what you should do. I think my thing is always like, I guess for me, it's like it becomes a little bit difficult, because I'm always ready to sign up for the hard road versus let's just do the easy thing where you just don't see it. You still are going to be impacted, I think, as a creator by seeing it. Like, whatever the reason is, you still will see that on your videos initially when you sign into the YouTube Studio Beta, but you won't have other people seeing it. So I don't really see it like otherwise. I just feel like either remove it all the way or leave it all the way, but not this half and half kind of approach, because I've never measured, and again, that's me personally, I've never measured a video as good or not based on the number of likes or dislikes. I assume that this video, for whatever reasons, is going to deliver. When it doesn't, I just leave. Like, you have to say something super offensive, and I'm not easily offended. So you got to say something like extremely hateful or like crazy for me to actually hit the dislike button. Or because most of the time, if you're just not delivering it or hitting it where I'm thinking, I just leave. I just leave the video. It's easy to hit that back button, keep on going about my day versus, leaving something. I don't expect the average viewer to give me criticism or critique my work, because again, are you listening at that point to a loud minority versus the silent majority at that point? So
I think another thing that's funny from a video critique level type thing, I'm watching a uniform, is if I have a legit critique for your video, I'm going to tell you. I'm not just going to press the dislike button and run away. I think that's part of the reason why it's irritating. It is irritating for the dislike with no context. I do think they will eventually get rid of it altogether. I think putting it like half is just an appeasement thing. See how the experiment goes. If it doesn't work, they can always put it back. I don't really see many reasons why it doesn't work, but I'll also try super hard not to come with any negativity on a comment. Like, I try to provide value and perspective. So even when I go and say I see like a right wing post or maybe just a misleading post, I'll be like, look, I know it just might not be your insights, but let me tell you why this is misleading. And here's both sides of the argument. You got to take what you will. Like, I'll do that. I normally don't want to just come in and be like, nah, this sucks, because it's just not helpful. And that creator at the other end, even if they disagree with you, even if they are full camp Canon and 50, like they got feelings too. You know what I mean? You don't know what kind of mess they going through. You don't know what's going on in their mind. I had a homework assignment I was going to put people in the group on, provided they had Netflix account. I watched this video yesterday, and it's amazing. It's amazing video on perseverance, on just dealing with stuff, on having to hide who you really are. And like nobody really knew what this female was going through. And when she finally got to let loose, like the world was shocked, you know, because she was basically repeating what her handlers told her. It wasn't that she really meant any of that.
Mm.
And so I just know that there's people out there hiding their true self because they think that's what the audience wants. And so sometimes having a little bit of duality in your perspective can still say what you mean, but provide a little bit of clarity to the other person as well.
Yeah. I feel like the society as a whole, like I feel like some of these changes become dangerous long term because if we're always trying to curate an experience that is always positive, you don't properly prepare and build people up for the times when it's negative. I think life is so much so about perspective, but how you handle those moments and stuff. Like if you have nothing to get you suited and booted, ready to fight and battle negative thoughts, negative things that people may say or think about you, removing yourself from other people's opinions and able to like proceed forward in your purposeful work, what you want to do, what you bring, the value that you bring to the world and all that stuff. We don't properly curate an experience where it's like not just a toughen up. I feel like that's a dangerous phrase that has been said years over years and people just think holding your feelings, holding your emotions, never show anything in this, iron facade. But I think we need to be creating a holistic experience to say, no, actually, let's take a look and let's educate you on what's actually is happening, build you up as an actual creator versus, or even a person, say whether you continue YouTube or not. Just like Instagram, we talked about that before, where Instagram was saying something about how they are very much so involved and caring about how the experience is for preteens to teens, young women. They're all on Instagram judging their personal physical effects as negative because of what they see a filter doing. And I love Shalene Johnson did a post on Instagram that showed like everything that you see on Instagram isn't real. And she took like her face when she wakes up in the morning and just like nothing, and then did a filter. And it's like, that doesn't even look like the same woman at all. And she did that like 4 or 5 different times in this whole little quick video, just to show like what you're seeing shouldn't dictate what your opinion is of something. So I don't know. Let's roll to the comments. We got some folks got some ideas, some thoughts around that different thing. Girls Line asks, do we know when this goes into effect? As far as I know right now, it should start right now. When you will actually see it, maybe give it about a good 30 days or something like that. Then you should begin to probably see some results of that. And also said, this is interesting, might relieve some anxiety for some creators. Again, my personal opinion, I don't think it needs to relieve anxiety for creators. Let's actually teach people what the thing is, because if somebody say, well, that stresses me out, okay, you are in control of your emotions and how you feel. If you are always waiting for the environment to curate you and to be conducive for you, you know what I'm saying? Like that, I think that ultimately is dangerous, because now we teach people, unless it's the right time or right environment, then you can't function. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's just I just want like maybe a holistic approach. I don't know. Am I off in that?
No, because, okay, so, I mean, real story here. In the beginning, the first 4 or 5 years, just because she was the first grandchild in the whole 9 yards, like, everybody in the family was just always telling Emma how good she was and stuff, positive reinforcement, positive feedback kind of thing. And then I think she went to go try soccer, and she wasn't feeling it because she couldn't be the top on the field. And probably more so because of me, like knowing that Uncle is hardcore, like soccer person, got her first Manchester jersey when it was like this big. She was like, didn't really want to tell us that she wasn't feeling soccer because she wasn't used to not doing something that she didn't excel at. And then knee-jerk a-hole reaction when she's like, I don't like soccer, it's boring. I'm like, what? Because that's me. And I'm like, wait a minute. So I think we had to make it collectively as a family to stop telling her she's so great at everything and tell her that you may try some things that you're not good at first. But if you like it, keep going, you'll get better, so forth, so on, etc. Because she was naturally gifted at piano, did her first recital at 3 years old. She's naturally gifted at swimming
Mm-hmm.
in like seventh grade right now, getting ready to get stuck on the varsity team because she's that good.
Mm-hmm.
So like you got to be careful only letting them do the things that they succeed at. Now, take that, add it to grown folks, same thing. And Keely, who's in the chat, hey girl, hey, and thank you. My knee still sucks, but I'm here. Keely brought up about not publicly announcing where you're heading in your journey sometimes because too many people are doing it for the yay team, and then you don't actually get where you're going because you're just on the Tinkerbell juice blowing up for the likes or the dislikes, right?
Yeah.
So if you just create your stuff and get it out there, and then you're being complimented or awarding on your finish, maybe that's a little bit better because too many people are always announcing what they're doing and getting all the like juice, but they're not actually finishing anything.
It's from any aspect of life, I think, just solely because if you are only making decisions when you get that public applause or when you get the positive, there are plenty of things. Like I literally was like, I think I was like in the tub or something. I don't know why it came across. I'm like, I literally could still have been covering Canon M50 videos and everybody would still be clapping. You know what I'm saying? In that same way. Versus when I switched things over, people was like, oh man, you could have did this, or people blowing up by this. And it's like, okay, but that's not the overall goal. It's like, I'm willing to go through the suck phase again to rebuild something totally new and that I fully believe in. Like we were talking about this at the Kirk stream. So did the interview on Kirk's show and we had the, I guess you call it like the after party or whatever in Zoom. And we were talking and Dee said something, and it's like, okay, are you doing something that you actually want to do or because people are saying that you should do? And like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so what's the feeling behind that? I think we just have to be careful if we're literally teaching people about becoming a creator. Being a creator means starting off in the mud. Like you're starting off filthy. You're literally starting off filthy and you're building something that doesn't quite have form yet. If we say go to the store and buy a pretty flower so nobody ever has to seize the go through the dirt, the tilling and all the stuff that goes to produce the flower, like, you know what I'm saying? I just think we're trying to curate a life experience for people that they're going to not be ready for stuff. So then you go back to the early days of YouTube when the creator community was not even like a phrase. You had literally people, I remember it was a whole like forum of people that had committed suicide on YouTube. You know what I'm saying? Like early days of YouTube, it was just like a list, 50 plus people that committed suicide because they literally, nobody was talking about it. Nobody could deal with it. Stuff like this wasn't a thing. Google Hangouts was around, but nobody was, you know what I'm saying? Streaming wasn't, it's not what it is today. And it wasn't as easy as it is today. It used to be super hard, hell, just to get a mix minus set up on a traditional mixer because you couldn't do, you know what I'm saying? Like we could take calls right now. We could say, hey, call this number and then you can join the show and let us know what you think. But we could do that super easy with a Rodecaster Pro. To do that with a mix minus for two people, you had 1,000 cables and stuff like just a few years ago. So, you know, the creator community wasn't what it is now. And I just believe if we aren't careful, we're going to put people in a position to where they aren't able to effectively become a holistic creator because they're always waiting for a good environment, a good space, positive reinforcement. You know what I'm saying? And we don't spend our days doing silly stuff or constantly giving people pats on the back. No, at some point you have to scrape your knee when you fall down because you said you wanted to learn to ride the bike. So is the goal more important? And, you know, I just feel like we messing people up psychologically with making these small decisions and stuff over time. Because it's not just them, Facebook making changes, Instagram making changes. Hell, what was that one thing that people used to do? OnlyFans, like they making changes and stuff. So it's just, I don't know, it gets to be weird.
You know, it's kind of funny. You go back and you look at some of these big time creators that nobody knew was suffering through like anxiety or whatever. And if I remember correctly, it seemed like 2016, 17 was a year of a lot of, just big time creators overdosing or suicides or something like that.
Yep.
It was kind of crazy, right?
Yep.
And it's weird, but that stuff happens because a lot of people get to this point where, that's when the authenticity thing came out really, really big. It's like, I don't want to be having to hide who I am or what I do because the anxiety of always being some character gets to people.
Yep.
Right. When you look at actors who go through this, right, a lot of actors will come out and say, you spend part of your life from the time you're like 14 forward or maybe around where you should be discovering your own identity, and you spend so much time in other people's identities that you don't have a self ground, and that really throws you out. So, a lot of guys got to take sabbaticals and come back.
Yeah.
And before he passed, that was something Heath Ledger talked about. He talked about going so deep into these characters like the Joker and stuff was like really starting to get to him, and it put him into excessive depression. So in a way, I like what El Marie and Corey put in. The excessive dislike seemed to be the younger generation of people online, immaturity or innocence or ignorance or whatever, plus the lack of knowledge. And that ass hates on adult users, right? I believe that too. I get comments all the time, still, and it's funny. I'll say this today. We were doing a group, and you get in the breakout section. And there's 5 of us. And the conversation was around using Twitter as a place to farm ideas for YouTube videos. Okay, so when you first go into the breakout room, there's like an awkward 60 seconds and nobody say nothing. And then I was like, okay, I'll ask everybody. I'll leave the room because it's what I do, natural, right? So I'm going around and each person will say their thing. And then, I give them a little answer just from my experience. And we get around to like the 5th person. And then she was like, oh, I appreciate your insights and stuff, but it feels like you're dominating the room. Why don't you let other people go? And I'm like, yeah, I was trying to, but, everybody was being quiet. So I said, I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to let them talk. All 4 of them been on Twitter for less than 6 months to a year. I'm the only person in the room with experience that's trying to tell them, how you can use lists to curate whatever. So you don't have to just follow a bunch of dumb stuff. And there's one person who was there for like over a year, but she says like, yeah, it's mostly like political content. It's not really stuff that I'm into. I just sort of use it as a helpful, like what's going on in the thing. So I'm sitting there being quiet and I'm laughing. And I'm like, so because this young person automatically went to sort of like, okay, boomer, which is funny because I'm not even close to boomer. But she just squashed out all of the information because she didn't think the fact that I'm the only person that's been on Twitter since like 06. So like
that's what I'm saying. Like we were around to
100,
right, to secure our names and our handles when it got started. And even if you didn't, you knew when the platform showed up. You know what I'm saying? Versus like you're showing up while the platform is maturing versus like Facebook, again, like we talked about that, where like joining when you had to be in college and you had to have a college email to have an invite, similar how Clubhouse was invite only, same thing. Only you had to have an email or something. And then they let it out to if a college person referred a high school person. I'm in my senior year and a college friend, they was like a freshman or something, they sent the invite and that's how I got on Facebook. So it's like somebody coming in now saying like, oh, blah, 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 blah. Like any of these other platforms, like you saying with Twitter, is just kind of silly, I think. I also think though too, that whole kind of comment and statement of, I feel like you're dominating the room. Okay, here's the thing. If you feel like I'm stepping on your toes, to the person whose toes is being crunched, say something or shut up, because I'm not intentionally at that point stepping on your toes. I know your character enough to say that's not what was happening. But if you
Oh
feel,
no,
if the,
I was just
it's like,
trying to
you know what I'm
because it
saying?
was silent. Like nobody was saying nothing. Because the funny thing is, they weren't saying nothing because they lacked the experience.
But that's
So
the thing though
that
too.
was,
That's exactly the point. You don't know, you have
that's
nothing
why
to
it was
say, but
funny.
you saying like, I don't think that you should be okay. So you want me to recurate the room, or allow y'all to have and curate this room while I'm also a party of the room. You want me to curate an experience for you so that it's more comfortable for you, but then you get that stage and you don't know what to do, and you should have shut it up and listened at that point. You know what I'm saying? I just feel like some of that stuff, like Blind Guy, his wife, their life said, ignorance, maturity, whatever it is, learn to be
Yeah,
put in
that's
your
why I brought
place
it up.
when applicable.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I brought that up because of El Marie's comment, because El Marie's comment's on point. Like sometimes these young people, and now it's at the fact where that is the okay. So this is going to sound super weird, and it's hard to cover this. There's a difference between inclusion, like making sure that everybody has a space,
Mm-hmm.
and realizing that you don't have anything to bring to the table yet. So therefore you don't get inclusion, because include what? There's cup runneth over, and then there's empty cups. So the best thing the empty cup people can do is get a couple drops in that empty cup from the runneth over person.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the idea of like, I got to make this space so that everyone, that whole everyone gets a batch stuff, like
Mm-hmm.
it still perplexes me, because I'm like, nah, man, some people shouldn't get the bat. They can't hit, they can't run, they can't do nothing. They can barely catch in the outfield. And at some point, this is where the parents need to know, okay, let's switch them to soccer, because, Emma's not going to play no more.
Mm-hmm.
So there's space for you there. You can't just like jump into something that you're not good at, qualified for, whatever, and expect to be put on all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And it's a touchy situation, but
These are these gosh darn participate. I'm saying the word wrong. Participation awards.
Participation trophies.
Yeah, and it's like, no, it is great to know that you did not place, because now it's not to say that you suck, even if you actually do in that moment, but it's to say like, okay, what can I now change or look at to get better? For case in point, I remember playing basketball in middle school. Even like before then, like my brother was always, working with me. I really thought I was going to go to the WNBA one day. Like that was my dream of life, was to go to the WNBA, play with Cynthia Cooper as if she was still going to be playing in the league at that point. And, and like that was the dream. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, I'm going to be in video games. They're going to have, you know what I'm saying? Like instead of NBA 2K, like they're going to have WNBA, like it's going to be a big thing. WNBA still is suffering to this day, unfortunately. But like, that was the thing. My brother talks to the varsity coach at the high school, says my little sister has potential. Can you let her come and play with the girls on varsity and JV and practice with y'all? She said yes. So I would go in middle school and go play with them and practice with, not play the games, but practice with them. And it was like, man, they throw the ball. It's like, and he's like, whoa, I don't have that kind of power. Yeah, but it's like you build it, you develop. He's picking up the medicine ball, throwing it down, or doing all the whatevers, running, up and down the steps and stuff like that for like 30, 45 minutes. And she was like, come on, the middle school legs, like put them to work. And I'm just like, I go home, can't move nothing. And my mom was like, you want somewhere? I'm like, Mom, I can't even pick the glass up. But I develop skills and learn to like I'm getting more aggressive. I'm starting to, like, hey, such and such, do you mind practicing with me a little bit before practice starts so I can get better at my layup, or blah, blah, blah. So it made me personally want to, like, it was a ceiling to reach for, you know what I'm saying? It was not necessarily a ceiling, but it was another level. I could see it. And I'm like, oh, these are the steps that I need to take to get better. So by the time I get to high school, I wind up getting to be captain of the JV squad. And so, I think it was JV or something like that. Yeah. Wait, it was a freshman team JV. So I think it's like my freshman year. So for the freshman team. So ultimately it's like when you're working towards what you're trying to do, if it's really something that you want to do, getting that participation award is like you showed up and we're proud of you for showing up. Yeah, it takes something.
It's not helpful though.
It's not helpful to say like, this is enough. You don't have to do any more. I think we should encourage people that when you don't hit the level that you want, like it's a way. You got to dig deep at that point. And telling people that it's okay to stay as you are is not, unless they choose to, is not, you know what I'm saying? Like, let's just lower the standards and let's bring the goal down. I learned that from Grant Cardone years ago. Like, if you set a goal and you don't hit it, when it's getting close to, like, I say by March 17th, 2022, I'm going to walk Mount Everest. When you getting close and you say, well, it is the March 1st and I'm not close to where I want it to be, you say, well, I'll put it back to March 2023. Don't move the goalpost. And I feel like that's kind of what we're doing, is moving the goalpost so people never have to, like, it just is a suck environment.
That's the
kind of
difference between course correction and changing course, right? You course correct is one thing. Just changing course is a whole different thing. And I love Keely's comment. I think that there's always somebody in the room that feels like they're being the bouncer. That's not the right word I was looking for. You know,
we know doc history.
You know, it is I guess when we used to get mad at social justice warriors, a lot of them had points. They were on point with what they were saying, but they said it in such a method it was discrediting stuff that other people said. And so they got a bad name, and now people aren't listening to them, even though they had something good to offer. Right. So it's almost like the catching flies with vinegar type thing. And I think in a way, to what Keely's saying, right, when you're going in them in a fulsome way, that's completely different. It's also, to me, I mean, it's just part of my mission statement, I guess. I think it's partially selfish if you're sitting on all of this knowledge and you don't tell nobody, either out of fear of somebody taking it and running with your stuff, or just out of, greed or whatever. I think you're being an a-hole.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? And then so if it just turns out that you become the curator for all of the right information in the thing, that's not a bad thing. Like, it just happens sometimes, and somebody got to be it, right?
Yeah,
like
I think
now, if I got to ask any creator of a certain vintage that's on like the yoga tip, I don't want to talk to nobody but Kali, because she's proven herself. Her providence is there.
I think people learning, like, you'll have mentors that are your mentor for the moment, for the hour, for the day, for the week, month, and then lifelong, mentors that you may have. So it's like, it's no different than I remember working at like retail and in food services and stuff. And I remember best times ever working at the thrift store, working for TJ Maxx, and slow day, you get somebody old that comes in there and they stand there talking to you for 30 minutes, teaching people when to learn to shut up and be corrected, you know what I'm saying, about a thing is like, it's one of the best things I think we could be doing for people. But the whole thing to say, no, I got a voice too. Not in this moment, you don't. You know what I'm saying? Not to take away from you. One day you will. One day you could. Blah, 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 blah. But it's also not the what we kind of grew up with, which is shut up, go sit in another room. You don't have a voice, kind of like grown folks is talking moment. Because I think that is just a mind your business situation. But literally learning when to sit on your knees, be quiet, and listen, so that you can, when you do get up to go do that forward motion, you're ready. And I think that approach is what we ultimately are trying to get people to do. Not even trying to get them to do, but encouraging people to want within themselves to do, because it's ultimately going to help you. I don't think any real mentor ever said something, whether it was harsh or kind to somebody, simply because, they were just saying it to be mean, but because they were trying to build you up. That's my thoughts anyway.
It's kind of crazy, but yeah, I think there's so much information out here now into the space about, trying to make sure that we aren't giving people sort of misinformation or giving them anxiety problems because they're looking at somebody else's thing. And no matter how many times we tell people, look, don't look at somebody else's middle while you're at your beginning. It's easy to say that. It's I won't say it's impossible, but it's harder for people not to do it if they don't know no better. Like, I just don't operate like that. Nikki had a dope post this week about like me in a competition, and it's funny because that conversation had came up in our class, and our teacher was like, "Oh, so who's your competition on YouTube?" I'm like, "Nobody." And she's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Because I just don't. I mean, okay, I'm sure there is, but I don't look at that stuff. I don't pay any attention to what the competition is doing per se, because I'm competing with myself. I think it's too easy to start like making weird judgments about yourself according to what the competition is doing."
Yes.
So I sent her that post Nikki had about the dude going the half pipe, and he's doing the tail grind, and he's coming across, and he's leaned back, he's just looking at the camera like, and then he disappeared. I'm like, yeah, that's me. Just come by, look at him like. It's funny, but someone says, "Well, who's your mentors?" I'm like, me. I stopped having mentors, and they, well, why is that? Track record, R. Kelly, like people I looked up to, turned out they were absolute a-holes. You know what I mean? Like, I just like, man, I don't want to find out another one of my people that I looked up to is an a-hole. And so I went through a couple of them in a row, and I'm like, nah, I'm not putting that weight on that. I will find the hero within.
I agree with you on that one. My other thing is, though, I feel like you always should do that. Like, you always should be within self. I think people lack that tremendously. Learning to be quiet with yourself and learning to, be silent and like really go through your own like thoughts, everything, like identification of thoughts and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Like the whole nine. However, I completely disagree with you about external mentors, but I get what you're saying, because I've definitely had a mentor that went sour or something. But it's the same thing of when you're picking friends, when you're in a relationship, when people show you who they are, believe them. And I could follow you to a point, and then now it's time for me to go elsewhere. So I don't.
It's knowing when to let go. So you're right. It's better, instead of just ignoring it, just know when to let go. Know when to realize that I am taking this for inspiration, but it's not a blueprint. I think that becomes a thing, because you end up with clones. All right, how's this one? If maybe it's just me, if every time I see a creator, especially in the AV space, what's up everybody, even without the, even if they just do the actual what's up everybody, I want to reach through the screen and slap the shit out of them, because I'm like, you ain't Peter, bro. You ain't not Peter.
Like, imagine if you come to one of my videos like, "What's up, everybody? What's up?" Just like, Ms. D, are you on?
I'll be on the next flight to Scott AFB. I was like, excuse me, if my homie say it's still flying Air Force, cool. I need to go to Scott AFB, and then I will parachute out above your house.
Right.
And then you be like, why the plane slow down? Uh-oh.
Okay, what the hell is
coming
that?
Out of the sky. Oh, that's Doc. Let me call my pizza.
So, right, it'd be like, y'all do drone deliveries? Hit him up. He coming right over latitude, longitude, / But I think though, like the whole thing around like, so bring it back full circle, and then we can talk about some cameras for those of you that were waiting. I think this is an important conversation. I think it will develop over time. I just believe we need to be very careful of the cultures that we're setting, because that will dictate how those people raise their children, how they have influence with their nieces and nephews. Like, I literally was just like kind of thankful before the stream started. My nephew texted me, and when he has communication issues with his mother, or when there's some kind of rift or something happening, he'll text me and he'll tell me what's going on, and he'd be like, "Can you help me?" And so like, that means everything to me, to like, you know what I'm saying? Know that my nieces and nephews come to me when they have a problem and they're looking for guidance. Like, that means everything to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, not because I'm so wise or whatever, but just like literally like you seeking wisdom. You know what I'm saying? Like, even if I don't have it for you, you know what I'm saying? I'm trying to get it to you through some other means or somebody else. But I think if we're going to create a culture of this participation award society, be ready for those people that can't handle the medical field, can't go and handle, you know what I'm saying, and deal with whatever the pressures come with being in the military, or can't handle the pressures of being a parent, can't handle the pressures of being an aunt or working a job. Any level of stress, any little anything takes you out. versus like knowing that we haven't tapped into the capacity of what humans are capable of. And to do that, I feel like will cause our creativity as a whole to die. And people that don't follow that cultural model will be seen as enemies when it shouldn't be. I just want a holistic community approach. Like, I, you know what I'm saying? It's like at the end of the day, my thing is love God, love people. And I feel like if I love you, I want to help build you up. And that means even in the moments when you don't like what I've said, but I'm ultimately doing or saying something because I want the best for you. And I'm sure, and I would hope other people take that same approach as well. I'm doing this in love. You know what I'm saying? I love you. I care about you. Even if I don't know you, I'm saying it in love.
I think people have learned to have a sort of knee-jerk reaction to everything is one part of it. You know what I mean? And they don't necessarily understand when someone's trying to come in and give them a positive, situation. They just automatically go to defend. So I talk about the BCD thing a lot. And unfortunately, culture has become to where just attack what you don't like rather than attempt to understand it. And so that's part of the reason why, as silly as it is, they got to get rid of the dislike button.
Yeah.
Because then we come to a culture of attack what we don't like, instead of just like, let me try to understand this. Oh, Keels is on point, right? We're not just content creator, we're culture creators, right? I believe we are culture creators and culture curators as well. So
I love that.
That becomes a thing. Definitely becomes a thing.
Yeah.
She's kind of smart for a whistle lady.
As we ultimately all reach out into our own communities, into our own brand, and we're building that, holistic people are going to build and cultivate experiences to help build other holistic people. And I think hopefully cancel culture cancels themselves out and learns to communicate and like learns to understand, learns to listen, and like spend some time with people that know what the heck they're talking about, so that you can.
That's
you know
a whole
saying?
nother subject that's hard, because a lot of people that are just, okay, here's why that word gets jacked up. Some people just say it because they got caught. And now you caught, you're not trying to hear what's going on, right? But then there's also, I look at a situation like Chappelle, where, first of all, it's comedy, people. Let's get that straight. Like, it's intended to be comedy. But at the same token, there are people right now that aren't listening for it because they're looking for something to attack, but it's becoming the loudest aggressor against a, let's just say, efficacious stance. So let's pick a celebrity. Let's pick anyone. Let's just say David Beckham. Becoming the loudest aggressor against David Beckham raises your status, right? Becoming the loudest aggressor against, say, Chappelle raises your status. So are you really offended? You know that joke was funny. And in all comedy, there is some truth to it. You highlight that truth and you blow it out because it's funny. Like when you made the joke about shuffling feet, and then me and Luis was cracking up because either we've done it ourselves or we've seen somebody do it before, whether you like it or not. You sit in next door, you see the broke hands go da-da-da-da-da, and then there's the noise. And then, in Japan, funny, in Japan, there's a button to play music or something so you don't make the noise and interrupt nobody. So when you see the shuffle feet, and then all of a sudden the music come on real quick, hey, you know that homie's going through some things, right?
Right.
So there's a certain situation where for some people, even when they did it themselves, like Butterworth, Miss Butterworth people came out and said, this we're going to do, or Angel Mama, whatever. Sorry, wrong one. And the company decided to do it because they thought better of what they had been doing. And everybody goes, oh no, everyone's trying to cancel Sir. Nobody was trying to cancel Sir. They made a comfort decision on their own. And then, so there's people that are using that terminology incorrectly. And then there's other things that straight up deserve to get canceled, right? R. Kelly, yep, deserve to get canceled. Bill freaking your Joe Pudding, yep, deserve to get canceled. So you can't lump that crap in, but trying to win some, points that's happening. And yeah, so it's just one of those things. I wish people would stop being anti-cancel culture, because there's some stuff that needs to be canceled. I would love right now if I ever had to not hear anybody else drop me an inbox. to against me. Not, me and my homies clicking and having a conversation, but somebody saying it to me out of hate. I would love to cancel that. This ain't going to happen. So yeah, it's super funny. Rich, I've said this 100 times, bro. I'm right with you. I will watch his stuff to get my knowledge. I have no problem watching creators that I don't vibe with to get my lessons, because lessons are lessons. I'm not going to put you in, but I probably would not just like going to hang out with him for like at a conference, I don't know why. He drives me batty.
I
don't think he's a bad person.
I probably would just simply like to get a chance to know who he is versus the impression that I think of who he is. You know what I'm saying? 100%. That's the thing. We'll move on because we went deep into this thing, but I want to hit this comment. Say, as a nurse for 25 years, I saw and dealt with some stuff that a participation award would not have set me up right for. I recently became a YouTube partner and would have been okay with a lower bar though. So meaning at that last point, as far as the YouTube, so you have to have 1,000 subscribers and you have to have 4,000 hours of watch time to get into the YouTube partner program. I remember when that program hit, I was already in the monetization and stuff like that at that point, but I hadn't hit the numbers yet. So when that became a requirement, any income that I had banked with YouTube stayed banked until I met those requirements. And so a lot of people were frustrated. I remember doing a video about it. But my thing was, again, I had been built and developed, and I would definitely say mentored to a point of not a deal with it perspective, but so what? That is not the end all be all to the what I'm doing. And I get where she's saying like the participation award in the medical field as a nurse would not set you up properly to deal with stuff if that was the culture at that time. So I definitely get that. But
here's the funny thing. It's the same as being a creator. Just think of it as you had to get your RN and your LPN to be a creator, because YouTube wants to know that if they give you some action to the action, you're going to actually be around the next couple of months, years, whatever, to keep adding to the party. If you let everybody in, there's a bunch of people that would never add to the party, and you're complicating the behind the scenes. You're complicating the administrative task, in other words, right? So if you let everybody have it from day one, and all they're doing is like posting one video every 6 months when they feel like it. Now you guys are on your grind. You don't count. There's people in our community right now that's like posting one video like every 6 months and wondering why they're not growing. You're just bad for admin. You're causing a hassle for the admin. So they want to prove that you're full skin in the game before they go ahead and let you in that game. So it's no difference than getting properly licensed to be a nurse.
Yep. 100%. So another thing that requires a special license is called a full checkbook, is the Sony A74, coming in at $2,498 US. But this camera is jam-packed. 33 megapixel sensor, full frame, 4K, 60 frames per second, 10-bit S-Cinetone, 3.68 million EVF with 120 FPS or frames per second. Refresh rate shooting up to 10 frames per second, which we've seen across a lot of different cameras. The specs, when you get down to the video side of stuff, is okay. I think the biggest thing that hit people with this one is the fact that the 4K 60 is cropped. Just address the elephant in the room. 4K 60 is cropped, meaning it goes to the equivalent of an APS-C sensor, which nobody's not already accustomed to or whatever. But that's the thing. It's a crop 4K 60. I mean, in real life application for that doc, would that even matter to you?
Nope.
Why?
Not at all.
Why?
Because number one, I'd rather have the oversample for things like callus brows or whatever, so that I can come in and recover some clips that I thought were on point that wasn't on point, because maybe I had a couple of them dirty martinis with Anna at the standard.
Maybe
them joints was stiff. I'm like, oh, this is good. I'm just having one for lunch, and then our hotel room was mad close. I think that sucker kicked in right when I got to the room. You and Luis was talking, and my neck was starting to get that clavel.
Listen, Luis will wake you up. Listen, if you didn't know Luis was Puerto Rican, I fully understand what that means. He'll just say, sorry, I'm Puerto Rican. And I'm like, okay, so what is that supposed to mean? And then I learned later that means he hella loud. Like in
When we say
moments
we
of
don't need no
excitement.
cloud lifter, people
Don't
think we
need
was
no-
joking. What you mean
that-
we don't
no-
need no cloud lifter?
No hose bar, no cloud lifter required. Okay, it's required.
Facts. Having that catalyst browse action in the end will be more important than the stat that you use to impress other creators online.
Yeah.
And again, all that comes out to Ms. D's favorite thing. You are repeating some mess that I'm not blaming you, Sonny. I'm just using your name because it's here. Sonny diagonally. I mean, sorry, Sydney.
Sonny
I can't even say it.
Sydney Diongson.
Sydney Diongson. Sydney Diongson. Sonny, like Sonny D is Sonny diagonally. That's
Sonny
hey, look,
D.
if Peter can be Peter McCormick and Matt can be Matt Haponi Boy,
yeah,
he can be Sonny diagonally.
He could be.
So, like, yeah, unfortunately, people are like, just repeating stuff they heard, and they don't really know why something is why, right? If Red had done this, nobody got nothing to say because this is Red.
Nothing.
They're top of the food chain. But Sony does it, Canon does it, Nike, Nikon, Panasonic, Microwave, whoever do it. Oh, they done ruined it for the creators. And no, you just mad because your wallet won't let you get one. Shut up.
Let that roll that up in your pipe and smoke it. So this camera, just to go through the
I'm
video.
In my house. I guess I can smoke on screen.
He'd be like, I guess I could. So here's the thing. Here's some other video specs. Because most people just hear 4K 30, 1080p, 120 frames per second, whatever. Here's the full breakdown. You got H.265, which is different. What most people have been experiencing and are used to in your cameras is H.264. We now have H.265. If you were paying attention with some of the updates, sometimes you don't see stuff because you haven't had an occasion for it to be a thing. But as you're getting into video, you will start to see H.265 going into higher quality videos is an easy way to say that. So it's going to be 422 10-bit. And what most of you all, if you have like an A6400, you have like a 422 or 420 at times, 8-bit color space, meaning imagine the difference between what is it, like them kits that was like 8 or 12 crayons versus the 244 joints with the sharp, crayon sharpener on the back. That's kind of the difference in the color spaces, meaning your camera will be able to get those shades of color in the in-between because it's able to pick up more detail. So that can go up to 200 megabits per second, which is more than what you're seeing in your ZVE10s, your A64, or even 6600s. Those go up to 100 megabits per second. And so you're seeing all of these different things. So you got a bunch of stuff in 422 and 420 10-bit color space. You're also getting, 7K now that's downsampled into this 4K video files. You're also seeing still the 1080p up to 120 frames per second in this camera as well. And of course the 4K 60 that is cropped and so forth, which is right here for those of you that don't know what the hell I'm talking about. So you can go for the gold with this H.264. You can go down to XAVC S and whatever, but just know, I think the camera is dope. Overall, at the end of the day, the camera is dope. You have some other stuff when it comes to external. There's some better things about this camera that I think people are overlooking. Like, what is it called specifically, Doc? It's the new grid now for being able to judge depth of field. I can't remember exactly what they called that.
Yes. Oh my God, that's another thing. Before we skip over it, just because I don't want to forget, I posted in the chat. One of the primary reasons why H.265 is the real deal Holyfield, especially for us live streamers, is H.265 does a different type of compression without getting like mad nerdy. H.264 works in either compressing 4x4 blocks or 16x16 blocks. So that means in your 4K image is looking at every 16x16 block and saying, is anything moving? So right now, because I'm sitting here, what's behind my head, it doesn't have to recalculate any of this purple, this gray, or this white. It only has to recalculate where my lips is moving right now. If you are Alec Johnson and you're like, hi, my name is Velvet Johnson, and I'm going to show you how to use your Stream Deck. The only thing that updates is his mouth because he does not move in his video. He is like somewhat robotic, right? HI265 works in a 64-64 pattern. So it looks at bigger chunks and goes, I don't need to mess with that. I can make it better. So what that translated into for streamers, a 4K broadcast on the HI264 is roughly 32 megabits per second. HEVC, aka HI265, is roughly 15 megabits per second for the exact same video. The average internet upload speed in the United States of America is 18 megabits per second. So for you 1080 people, it cuts down 6 megabits per second down to 3. So all of that is going to give you just much better look on your live streams. It's also why your iPhone and all of these guys have gone to the HEVC and HIEC codecs in your phones. It's because it takes up so much less space, therefore it doesn't damage the clouds. Not damage the clouds, poof the clouds.
So that also means for those of you that are getting into creating as well, like specifically on like this camera, the other thing is also, so you now get the 4K, if you know the USB internal streaming can now be exported in through the USB-C in 4K. You still do have that regular USB micro cable or port rather on the camera. And you can stream to that, but it's gonna go back to, I think, the 720p resolution or something like that. So if you want the best, you need a good USB-C cable that can transfer data, and you can do that in 4K. And Gordon Lang has a great video on that. He's not going to be super flashy or whatever, but he takes more of a journalistic approach when he's reviewing stuff, and I find that to be extremely valuable because it's not like he doesn't overlook stuff. I'll put it that way. He addresses literally everything and just says like, oh, well, this one compared to this one. And it's not, he lets you make an educated decision, provides you enough details to do that. This camera has some other stuff. Obviously, with every new iteration, it's always the next fastest version of eye autofocus in video, as well as for photos. I don't think photos at this point really matter to an extent because it's just fantastic already. It's just getting even better and better. So it's like, it got a little bit better. So for photos, but for video, if this is your jam, you're looking at about $2,500. My question becomes with this though. So the A7 III, when it launched at 2017, 2018, I think, when that camera came out, most people bought it. I don't care what brand they were with. They bought that camera because it met a lot of needs. And then Sony played their little play of saying, this is the basic model, the entry-level model. Time has now passed. The A7C now becomes their bare bones entry-level camera into the full frame, which I honestly just think the A7C is a replacement of when you're done with APS-C and you're wanting to go next level up. I don't think they're going to do any more APS-C cameras like that for real. I think they're going to push that into that A7C lineup. So I get why this one has a little bit more of a price to it comparative to what the A7C costs, which is essentially like almost the same as a A6600 at this point. I just think most people, their expectation with this camera was to be that grandiose wow factor that the A7 III had. And because it doesn't have that right now, it's not getting as much public fanfare as when it probably gets in people's hands is going to be. I think it's going to be one of those sleepers, like everybody talking about it now. Oh, not good enough. Don't do this. How dare you crop 4K 60, blah, blah, blah.
A lot of talking, but yeah, it's funny. So I mean, first of all, if you're taking 7K footage and then you're cropping it down to 4K and just giving you some serious neural engine thinking, processing the videos. I think people don't understand what those output videos look like because they have nothing to go off. It's kind of like the iPhone. Cinematic mode is gimmicky. Cinematic mode is gimmicky. This is off the chain, right? Because it's gimmicky as a line on a website. It's gimmicky when you're trying to make videos that just have Apple hate, Linus, just so that, people can like follow you because they want to be Apple haters too, right? It's another thing where you take a feature that sounds like a weird thing on paper and then you realize it without having it in my hand. Focus mapping, game changer.
I think that
Focus
is going
mapping is an absolute game changer.
because it's here, and you know what really bothers me? People that talk stuff in their videos when like, and we all make our opinion related video on where this camera sits, what we think about it, and blah, blah, blah. But the people that drive me is like the people that really are saying something about a feature, but they really don't have real world application and use to make that kind of a judgmental response, right? You're speaking from a theory of what it could be. When you actually take your camera out, like for example, I took the ZV-E10 and nothing but the 10 to 18 for the whole entire week in New York. So the what you see on paper and the actually taking it out to go do a thing with it is really what defines it. So when a new feature comes out, unless you've had that real world application, not put it on a tripod, I use it in the office experience because everybody has that now. But when you actually go put it in an environment, then you really see what it's capable of. Then you really see what's possible. I have no qualms with the vlog footage that like Luis was sitting there laughing, cracking jokes, doing this, holding the camera while I talked about, what was it, like the A7 III? A7 S Mark III. He's just sitting there talking to somebody else, just making sure the frame, he ain't even paying no attention. I have no qualms with the way that footage looks or whatever, how the balance was or autofocus or none of that stuff, because it's like, oh, it did its job. However, in retrospect, when I took the M50 out in 2018, when I first got it, and I took it out for vlogging, I was like, okay, it's pretty cool. When I took it out again to something else, it would be indoor shots. Same kind of experience as with the 10 to 18, or should be, footage grainy as hell. And I'm like, it's same kind of a lighting that we had in New York at the hotel. I'm like, this is the exact same kind of scenario. I had the M50 at that time, same kind of environment, and it was just like Sprinkle City. And I'm like, well, what the hell is this? So the thought of how you think it'll perform in a situation versus how it actually performs, like I think some people talking too much about some of these features that the A74 have, and they've never did a real world test or use of any of the previous cameras to make that definitive decision. Granted, you can have your opinion, but your opinion is stupid. Because you know what you're talking about.
the best ones were the guys that were like, look, I've had this for 3 weeks, and even at 3 weeks, I can't tell you everything. But of the 3 weeks I have, it has been quite incredible, right? Yeah. Or of the 3 weeks I have, I realize I need more time in order to be able to, like, no cap, give you the real deal Holyfield info. Mm-hmm. You know, and I appreciate those better. Again, if you look at the Matt Hoponi boy, what the boy name is?
Peter McCormick. Sonny D.
Sonny
Diagonally.
Jason Bong.
Jason Bong can't go wrong with Bong.
Can't go wrong with Vaughn. Like when Jason and Manny guys did their test, you know, Matt, even Peter, like when they did their test, they went in deep, right? Mm-hmm. Then I look at some people, like I think Justine, she covered it from a consumer standpoint. So she was a little bit probably what most of the people in our camp needs to hear, mm-hmm. right? But then there are some people that like just were going to cover it and just throw all of the canon, like whatever against it, you know, mm-hmm. and it's kind of funny. But like Fro said, look, man, all three of these people done dropped cameras at the same time. And the other two done messed up. And you know, normally I like to give Sony his business, but holy God, this is legit. And I appreciate it. You know, like I appreciate that he will give all of them the stick, you know. But where this camera is going to shine for our people specifically, that built-in USB live streaming is there.
Yes.
Like,
in 4K.
It's crazy. In 4K.
And if you like, so y'all got to catch some, I don't know when you dropping your vlog footage. I know on my channel, we getting ready to edit that stuff now to start cranking those videos out. But like when you see, because Doc, you took the Sigma 16 and the Sony ZV-E10 as well. When we were at B&H though, mm-hmm. and like we had clips from making Lem try to switch to Sony in the moment and testing the cameras. I got the photos that I took of Gigi's dog and like still looking at those, and it's just like, what in the hell? You know, it's like seriously, it is a whole other world of difference when you actually are using something. And I feel like it's too soon for people to make an opinion about is not being good or not. But I think when people get this camera in their hands, it's going to be dope. And because we talked about the A7C spec, just to throw the price up there, is $1798. So you got a $2,500 camera and you got $1798, which when the version 2 of this comes, maybe next year or the year afterwards, potentially, depending on what's what, I think you'll see some, maybe this will get the 4K USB-C live streaming. That's my hope anyway. Maybe it will get some 422 probably externally or something, or it could be, who knows what Sony may do. I think because this camera exists, most people was looking to have the A74 be more, but I think in real life use application, it already is going to be. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think it's fine as is. I do question, like, what did people want? Did they want 4K, 120 frames per second? Were they expecting 6K or something like that? Like, I was thinking about this. I'm gonna say this and I'm gonna sit for a second. I've been wondering, what did people expect? What was their hopes? Because 4K 60 is good. Were they just expecting to get more in that? Like Sony's saying that you can do 4K 120 frames per second? Or were they looking for 6K now? And then based on that, like what else was your expectation around? And then for me personally, I don't think I'm going to switch and get the camera. I've been really thinking about it, but it's like, I love APS-C personally. Like, I really do. I vibe with it. I rock with it all day long. It would have to be a camera I try, but even as fantastic as the A7 III was, I still, when I was holding and using that comparative to my A6400 at the time, I was like, just give me my A6400. Like, I love what I'm doing there. And when I took the A7 III out that night, shot with it all night long, I was glad to get back to my A6400 because I'm like, this is not so much better than what I'm already using. Sony is still great. That's which is kind of crazy that the APS-C is good like the full frame is, sensors wise and performance wise. I'm like, I don't need the extra weight and the one or two extra other things, because what have I shot in the last 3 years that's been 4K 60, and what am I going to shoot in the next 5 to 7 years that may be 4K 60? So maybe for the sake of future work, it may be a camera that the company has, but for right now, I can't see me buying it. Just solely, use
Well,
case.
you know what it is, right? If you're talking about the kind of guys that are doing weddings or doing stuff where they just want to inject a lot of slow-mo, this is where they get that from, right?
Mm-hmm.
But nowadays, with slow-mo plugins getting so much better than before, you can get a decent slow-mo. Not too many people are going to look at your slow-mo pulls and then go, oh man, you shot that at the wrong thing, or you over-interpolated or whatever. They're watching the video, man. They're in the vibe. If the video is doing the vibe and the video is doing the story, no one sees those technical things.
Mm.
And how you know this? Go watch an episode of The Wire or The Sopranos.
Oh, yeah.
It still holds up.
Yep.
That joint is in 4:3, is whack, and it still holds up.
Yep.
Like to this day, right? You watch Casablanca or Jimmy Stewart and the Rabbit, Harvey. You watch, they still hold up. Ain't nobody going, oh, this was shot in like, Panaflex, blah, 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 in 1937. And nobody care. The content is the content. So a lot of that gets out of control, and it's a little bit silly because some of that stuff is still legit. Like 1977 Star Wars unremastered is still legit. So unfortunately, a lot of that is talking loud and saying nothing. And that be said too, right? If you're a hybrid shooter, right, meaning you do a lot of photos as well as videos, it's worth it. It's completely worth it. If you're like Ms. D, but look, I'm going to primarily take video. There'll only be an occasional photo. But if I'm going to shoot a photo, I'm going to just shoot it with my iPhone. Then yeah, you ain't got no reason. You got no reason. You know what I'm saying? And the weight difference between it and the 6600 to me, I forgot what it was. I wrote it down for you, but it's something like 20 grams. And 20 grams is a little bit short of an 8-ball.
No, I'm saying, I'm not saying the weight of the camera body to camera body. I'm saying weight distribution across Because here's the thing, it's
Yeah,
like
no,
you don't,
I was just
you
being
gonna
a
buy
smart ass.
lenses, you gonna buy lenses that it's like, oh man, because you full frame now, you ain't looking at the APS-C lenses no more for the sacrifice of weight or shooting in the crop mode or something. You going for the gold. You gonna get that 12 to 35, 15 to 35 lens. You know what I'm saying? You going for the gold. You want the big bulbous lens. It's like extra hella heavy. You going for the gold. So you gonna drop about a good 5 G's on lenses. And now here you are sitting sideways because you got to carry a grip of gear. Plus my personal goals is like next year, I had already been saying, I was like, next year it's like I want to work towards having an in-person videographer in town, because like I was telling you, my goal is to have like build a warehouse. And so that will be replace the home office setup. And so in doing that, it's kind of like just even looking at the goals, it's like, yeah, we'll probably own that plus other Sony cameras like the FX3 that's out. We'll get that plus other things, but it's like, I'm not finna have to carry it no more. And if I am going to carry something, it's going to be not a Post-it note, but a ZV-E10, Sigma 16, or my A6600 or something like that. I just creatively, I think I've gotten very satisfied with what I personally have. And if I buy anything else, it'll be for the company or for content purposes. And at that point, we're also looking into drone territory, which just so happened the DJI Mavic 3 came out, Cine Premium Combo coming in a good 5 Gs with two cameras on them. Quick key features it's listing here: 3-axis gimbal with dual cameras, 12 megapixels telephoto and 28x hybrid zoom, 20 megapixels 5.1K wide angle 4.3 or 4/3 rather CMOS Hasselblad lens on here, up to 46 minutes of flight time, which is pretty gosh darn impressive. Have you seen the footage on this yet?
Yeah, I'm trying to completely ignore it. because that will oh yeah, and it's funny right now, we're going through Poppy's kit right now, and we got like we got to inspire a bunch of Phantom 4s or whatever, and it's like we got to find good holes for them, but those need a license. This one may start to fit into that category of needing a license.
Yeah,
so
it definitely does.
Yeah.
It's not advertised for was it like 249 grams?
Yeah. So people who are interested in that, you're definitely going to have to go get that series. And I mean, it's worth having anyway. Like I kept putting it off, and I was thinking I should go get it anyway, because with sales getting, people can't really go. If I were to go and get my license, then if Karen gets a property, I can do aerials and stuff like that and not get her in trouble. Over here, they frown upon drone pilots that don't have licenses taking pictures for commercial purposes.
Yeah, you got to have that Part 107 license if it's over 250 grams, which
107.
Part 107 license. The thing with this though, I think this starts to get off into that territory of what's the big old monstrosity one, like the mug come out like the Hulk. Gosh, what is that big old thing? Is it the Inspire? That mug is magic.
Yeah,
it takes it takes a micro 4/3 lens on it. Literally, you take it off, you see the sensor chip right there. And so you're putting like your lenses on there, like you put that thing up. When that mug takes off, it sounds like a pterodactyl getting ready to go into the sky. But it's like, so that is kind of like, this makes me think of that, like getting 2 pilots instead of just one. Because with those cameras, or drones rather, you have one that is for the person that's flying so they can see where to fly. And then you have a second controller for another person that's controlling what footage they're recording with that. So you got 2 pilots happening at the same time, or one pilot technically. One person only has a license, the other one can control the camera. This one, I think, is kind of playing into that territory, like where it's still built in. You still get 2. You may not have to have 2 people to do it, but you can kind of get some of that same functionality. At least that's what it makes me think of. It's $21.99 if you're just getting the drone only. But who's going to get the drone only? That's kind of like the same thing with the action camera they came out with. It's like, you're not just going to get the one. They're going to get you to piece buy this thing until you see like, oh, I do need the other battery. Oh, I do need the extra propellers. Oh, I do need, now you didn't spend more money instead of buying the one whole thing. So they're going to win either way. I think this is dope. Dope drone. It just, and the footage from it, golly, I don't know, man. This kind of stuff right here
it's a
excites the
cine
crap out of
camera,
me.
right?
Yeah.
It's a cine camera, and I think people don't. If you don't understand what cine cameras do, then yeah, I can't help you. But there's a huge difference, and so yeah, it will be amazing. It will be amazing.
I think it's dope. I look
Man,
forward to that and more when it comes to the gear and all the said things. Obviously, a ton of stuff is continued to come out, and as you are creating, I think buy whatever you want to buy. Don't complain about it later. But if you want it, buy it. You don't need to justify it. But if you do need to justify it, go create and do something. Learn and do. You feels me? But that's what I think anyway, brother.
Okay, so I got the answers. I was just almost there. I'm almost there. So the difference is, I'm gonna paste this in real quick because I was sitting over here doing this homework. So you gotta let me post this. All right, so the A74 is 658 grams, basically a pound, 7.3 ounces. The A6600 is 503 grams, or 1 pound, 1.8 ounces. A difference of, wait, that didn't come out. It's supposed to be a difference of, oh my God, why did he say that? It's a difference of 0.3 of a pound to 0.34 of a pound, AKA an 8-ball. It is an 8-ball difference.
And Luis coming through with the emoji for the win. I think that's why I think
Exactly.
though, ultimately, it's going to be that transition from go from APS-C, like when you want more, go here.
Yep.
Period. Like I really don't think we're going to see a successor to the A6600 that's going to be a significant successor. Because what they going to do? You're not going to do 4K 60 in that APS-C body. I think they're going to say go A7C or better, which in this point will be the A74.
Here's why too. If you let the processor and the camera do all of that work, the camera will guarantee overheat. So everybody wants all of these stuffs, but then everybody bitches when the camera overheats. You can't get both right now. The camera has to get bigger, and nobody wants that either. So it's better to be small and limit some of that processing to off. And so everybody goes, "Oh man, with the Canon R something and these Sonys, you got to do all of your processing on the computer." Yeah, no S Sherlock, because if you did it in camera, it will burn that sucker to death. And now M1s calculate this stuff fast anyway, so they all were smart and go let Apple handle it. PC people will suffer until next year or year after next. Because they got new processors too, right? So their new processors will handle it, and then the camera don't got to do it. So it's genius. Anyway, that was my out point.
We'll see. Girls Lawn saying, so I don't have one yet. Maybe next year. And this camera talk is deep, because here's the thing: most people buy, and I literally was having this conversation with a client that you do not buy a camera for. It's like the question was this in a car, so all the things. Help me to set the expectation for do I really need to buy a camera every 1 to 2 years, or am I just buying the wrong thing? And I'm like, you're buying the wrong thing, because you're buying for what is recommended and talked about as it is our profession. And I'm like, the nature of my work, I'm going to cover the latest things and who fits that need best across my community as stuff comes out. That is not to say the camera that we were talking about 3 months ago is now null and void. It's simply, if somebody's just getting into the market, where you start here. You know what I'm saying? Not start, if you start in kindergarten or first grade or whatever, the 1999 version of that is very different than the 1875 version of that. And what the curriculum is going to be. So your curriculum starts here. So the expectation is for creators, my opinion, you can buy a camera that is good enough for where you are right now and where you think as you build and create more content, that will now not be good enough because your ideas have superseded the possibilities of your camera. So you can either buy for where you are right now, or you can buy up. So as you get more creative ideas, your camera can handle what you plan to do or what you imagine or creatively plan to do. The Sony cameras are great cameras for that. There's other good brands out there. I just believe Sony is doing the best job at that right now for where you're at. The ceiling is pretty high. So the A74 is going to be that ceiling pretty high camera. You'll have that camera for a year and still probably never touch some of the stuff that we talked about so far. At least in my opinion. So.
Oh my God. Yeah. Hang up so I can tell you some gossip.
Okay. Well, thanks for joining us for this week. This week in live. I am your hostess with the mostess, Diana Gladdy. My brother to the right of me, left of you, maybe depending on where you're watching this.
Yeah, DocRockHostageVideos.com.
Yeah, right.
This is my Doc Rock Hostage videos look.
Okay. Yeah.
Karen is holding me at gunpoint.
Hey, we ain't seen nothing, ain't heard nothing. We don't know nothing. Ain't seen nothing, ain't heard nothing. Sorry, can't help you.